In the shadow of global headlines, a silent power shift is unfolding. Far from Beijing, deep within the heart of Africa, Chinese military boots are on the ground. But these aren't just peacekeepers or diplomats. They're soldiers, engineers, and strategists quietly constructing a web of influence that stretches across the continent. This is not just investment, it's strategic positioning. And the world is finally beginning to ask, why is China militarizing Africa? What is the endgame? Africa, often viewed as a land of opportunity, is more than just a market for China. It's a strategic launchpad geographically, economically, and militarily. With 54 nations, vast natural resources, and strategic sea lanes, Africa offers China access to critical minerals like cobalt, rare earths, and oil. New trade routes via infrastructure like ports, railways, and highways. Diplomatic support in the UN and global forums. And now, potential military leverage across 3 oceans, the Atlantic, Indian, and Southern. But it didn't start with tanks. It began with roads, railways, and loans. The year was 2017. China officially opened its first overseas military base in Djibouti, a tiny nation on the Horn of Africa. Location advantage? Immense. Djibouti sits at the mouth of the Red Sea, guarding the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a critical choke point for global trade and military vessels. While China called it a logistics support facility, the truth is more layered. The base can host over 10,000 troops. It includes a deep-water port capable of supporting aircraft carriers. Satellite images show helipads, anti-air systems, and underground storage. China claimed it was for anti-piracy and peacekeeping, but the scale and the secrecy told a different story. Across Africa, China's Belt and Road Initiative has poured over $150 billion into ports, roads, power stations, and railways. But many of these projects serve dual purposes. Let's look at key examples. Angola, home to one of China's biggest oil interests, Chinese engineers have helped develop strategic infrastructure near airfields and ports. Kenya's Port of Lamu, funded heavily by Chinese banks, it could host naval ships in the future. Cameroon, Namibia, and Equatorial Guinea reports suggest Chinese interest in military facility access or construction. China's strategy? Use debt diplomacy, win construction contracts, and quietly gain exclusive access rights. In many African countries, Chinese companies are building dual-use facilities infrastructure that serves both civilian and military functions. Airports, seaports, communication towers, all appearing civilian at first glance. But intelligence analysts warn that many are constructed to rapidly convert into military use if needed. Chinese telecom giants like Huawei and ZTE are wiring Africa with 5G and surveillance systems. While they promise smart cities, they also create potential for information control, espionage, and military-grade command centers. This approach allows Beijing to project military capability without declaring it outright. It's strategy by stealth. China is also embedding itself within local militaries. It supplies weapons to over 24 African nations, hosts military training programs for African officers in China, sends PLA trainers and engineers to African defense academies. This isn't just about goodwill, it's about influence at the command level, control the training, shape the doctrine, win the allegiance. Beijing also uses private security contractors, Chinese firms with deep links to the state, to guard its assets in places like Nigeria, South Sudan, and the DRC. China's growing military footprint hasn't gone unnoticed. The United States, with its own base in Djibouti, Camp Lemonnier, has increased surveillance and naval patrols in East Africa. France, with deep colonial ties, is reasserting influence in West Africa amid rising Chinese activity. There are reports of increased U.S. drone flights, joint military exercises with African nations, and efforts to counter Chinese-backed digital infrastructure. Yet unlike the U.S., China avoids direct conflict. Its expansion is slow, methodical, and cloaked in development aid. It's power projection without provocation. When you step back and connect the dots, a pattern becomes clear. China is encircling the Indian Ocean with bases from Djibouti to Pakistan to Sri Lanka, penetrating the Atlantic via Equatorial Guinea and Namibia, locking down the Red Sea and Suez trade route via the Horn of Africa, and building a digital and physical infrastructure spine across the continent. Africa isn't just a partner, it's becoming a chessboard in China's game of global power. So what's China really after? It's not just about bases. It's about building a global logistics and power projection network that protects Chinese overseas interests, deters Western influence, secures energy and resource corridors, and supports a future blue water navy capable of global dominance. The United States did this post-World War II. Now China is replicating the strategy, African edition. But unlike the West, China doesn't need military alliances. It buys loyalty through loans, builds infrastructure, and waits. The endgame? A multipolar world where Beijing holds the military keys to multiple continents, and Africa is where the fuse is being lit. What looks like development today might become deployment tomorrow. As China builds ports, bases, and digital strongholds across Africa, one question haunts the strategic minds of the West. Are we already too late to stop it? Stay alert, stay informed, subscribe for more deep dives into military strategy and global power shifts.